All right, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Josh Richards. Thank you for joining us. I know most of you that are here in the crowd at the moment, but that's okay for those of you that don't know me. I have been causing a little bit of trouble in Mount Gambier for the last few years as part of a team that we'll get to in a little bit. So this afternoon I'll be talking to you about the Mount Gambier cave diving region. A little bit about me, I suppose, if we can. So I lead a team called the Grubby Wombats. We have had a little bit of attention over the last year or so, particularly with a fairly notorious news article of me on ABC National News earlier this year, talking about the wombats. For those folks here who are not from Australia or don't know what a wombat is, this is a wombat. They are fairly aggressive, cranky animals, generally getting up to about 30 kilos in size. Nocturnal digging animals, can sprint at up to 25 mile an hour, armoured butt cheeks, generally just pretty grumpy Australian marsupials. But why the soggy wombats? So there's a few jokes there around nocturnal digging animals, but the soggy wombats are a cave diving exploration team that was put together in around 2020, 2019. There's 8 of us in total. So we're all different specialists. We've all got different areas of expertise, and we've focused those different areas of expertise in order to be able to find new sections of cave. We operate on 5 guiding T's. So we use tools to go a little bit further. Generally means using things like side mount, using rebreathers, using different pieces of equipment in order for us to be able to push further into caves than people have pushed previously. We develop our own techniques in order to do it safely. For those of you that are cave divers, you'll be familiar with the Golden 5 rules. So things like continuous guidelines with surface, not using air below 40 metres, carrying 3 lights. We still abide by those 5, but everything else is up for grabs. So if there's a safer way of doing something that maybe wasn't taught to you by your cave instructor, we'll discuss it and figure that out and see if it's the right thing for us. So it's always about tweaking our techniques and changing what we do in order to be able to do things that are a little bit different. We always use technology to document what we're doing. So you'll see a lot of talk in this talk about the use of GoPros in order to produce photogrammetry models. I use the 360 camera to be able to do that. I've also used a survey tool called the Monemo, all sorts of different things in order to document what we're doing, trying to gather as much data as possible wherever we are. We're also completely clear when it comes to that data, so it's all about sharing it as much as we possibly can. My raw survey data all gets put up on GitHub. We publish all of our videos up onto YouTube. It's all about sharing everything that we've got so that other people might be able to use that data and see things that maybe we didn't see. And ultimately, while we're very open and very clear with everyone, it's all about trusting our team. We're pretty picky about the people that are part of our team. We're often quite picky about who we dive with. And so trusting our team and keeping things internally, but sharing as much as we possibly can as soon as we know that it's safe to do so. So we have the 8 soggy wombats, a bit like the 7 dwarves. Got me there covered in mud on the left-hand side. Matt Aisbert, our sleepy wombat, is arguably our rebreather specialist. He's by far the most experienced rebreather diver in the team. Our little deco wombat, who's in the audience here at the moment, is our medical specialist, Chloe Reed. Has always been there to make sure we don't do things truly stupid. And if we are going to do something genuinely stupid, at least we're going to have medical support there to look after us afterwards. Martin Slater, our weirdo wombat. Now Martin, this is actually more clothing than Martin usually has on. Definitely an unusual character. Tends to be one of our push divers. Tends to push into places that other people wouldn't. Will Passos, Churrasco Wombat down here, is our photographer. He takes the extraordinary photos and has become our photogrammetry specialist as well. Sunshine Wombat there, so Simon Backman. Simon is our videographer. He produces incredible videos from all the different footage that we collect. Salty Wombat, by far the youngest of the lot. So Corey Old is a Mount Gambier born and bred, and he's a relatively new joiner. But he's definitely cultivating that position as a push diver. He's going into places that other people We call him Salty Wombat primarily because most of his experience has been gained going and chasing after crayfish under the reefs. So he's our cray killer. We did want to call him Hunter Killer, but Salty Wombat is what's stuck. And Corey is definitely renowned for squeezing into very small places and finding caves that other people didn't. We have a mystery wombat. For those of you that are not familiar, cave divers can be a prickly and slightly political bunch. So we do have an 8th member who does contribute quite a lot, provides a huge amount of support, but wants to keep his name anonymous in order to try and avoid some of the politics that does go on. So, for me, personally, I have been diving nearly 30 years now. I started quite young, me in the bathtub with Dad's regulator here. So I learned at around 11, 12, and have been diving, like I said, nearly 30 years. I spent time with Navy as a diver, but my journey towards cave diving was a little bit unusual. So I didn't start by going, oh, I want to be a cave diver. I got involved with a project trying to send people one way to Mars in about 2012, and as part of that, becoming a candidate for that program, started doing a lot of research into where we would be living on Mars. The most natural place to put people on Mars is actually in the caves on the surface. Started getting involved with that. That program started to wind up in about 2020, and I wrote a book about it called Cosmic Nomad. And it was during the writing of that book, I stopped and thought and went, what's the one thing that I would want to do before I left Earth? And it turned out to be cave diving. So I did my basic cave course in 2019, alongside Churrasco Wombat, Will Passos there, and another guy that we'll talk about a little bit later on. But instantly fell in love with all of it. Instantly knew this is what I wanted to be doing with myself. I also met Maddie at the same time on the same course, and we very quickly bonded, both ex-servicemen, both decided we want to go and check out pretty much every cave we could find. And our whole thing was, it didn't matter what someone else had said, we were going to go and look ourselves. So if someone turned around and went, oh, don't worry about that cave, it's a little puddle, we were going to go and check. We wanted to go and have a look at every single hole and poke and have a look at for ourselves, which eventually led us to Engelbrecht's Cave. Now, for those of you that are cave divers, you'll be well aware that Engelbrecht's is right in the middle of Mount Gambier itself. There's literally a cafe that sits on the top of it, and there's a highway running by. Engelbrecht's has two sides. There's the western side, which is advanced cave rated, and at this stage, we were not qualified to go and dive on the western side. We were qualified to dive on the eastern side, and it was one of those places that people had dismissed as being a tiny little puddle. You can see down here, this whole section was all of about 30 metres. It's basically a large pool, there's a bit of a dip under, and then you pop up into an air chamber. If you were brave, if you were silly enough to give it a go, you could probably free dive through and go from one chamber to the other. Often dismissed as a puddle. Often dismissed as a puddle primarily because you had to go down about 6 flights of stairs to get down to the water in the first place and then carry your gear all the way back up again. So, quite a challenging place. Matt and I had heard that there might have been a second puddle at the far end of the air chamber down in the bottom there. And so, the first time we went down there, carried all our gear down, popped up into the main chamber, crawled over about 50, 60 metres of rocks, found this puddle in the back, and jumped in. When we jumped in, we swam around for a little while, and it was quite a small room, probably about the same size as this stage. And while we're popping around there, I shone a light up to the roof and saw a reflection, and realised that we were looking at another air pocket. So popped up, crawled through, squeezed through a little area, and found this pool in the back of that room. Now, we're brand new cave divers. Like, we've literally just finished our cave course and we're going, what is this? We've probably already broken a few rules by popping into different sumps and squeezing into different places, but we wanted to make sure that we checked every place that we went to. So I squeezed through this, and Matt decided, probably the smarter of the two of us, decided to stay on the other side. I squeezed through this and found there was another pool on the other side. So at this point, we've gone through 3 pools, popped out into another area. I took this photo and didn't realise it at the time, but we'd actually found something fairly significant. At the time, we thought this was just a pool. This is just a little area, and this is a cool little thing at the back of this small, crappy cave. Most people ignore, didn't give it a lot of thought. I took this photo in about January 2020, and then turned around. Decided this is just a small room, turned around. Knew there was probably more that needed to be explored there, but we'd done enough for the day. It was quite an adventure for two very new cave divers. What I didn't realise is that that rock that's just there was hiding a massive tunnel. So when we went back after COVID, 12, nearly 18 months later, squeezed back through, we also had a chance to have a look at a lot of the fracture lines. So Mount Gambier is covered in fracture lines. We looked at some of the old research from Ian Lewis that had been done in the early 2000s, cave geologist, and we knew that these fracture lines ran through this particular cave. And while Louis had originally looked at this large chamber as something that could be there, formed by Engelbrecht's West, we were much more interested in what was going on down in the bottom corner here, Engelbrecht's East. And we could see that there were an intersection of these different lines. We knew there was potentially something back there, so when we went back in 2020, we'd taken all the notes. The area that we dug ourselves into was right down the bottom here. Compared all the fracture lines and started to realise that maybe there was something behind that rock that we'd stopped, that we hadn't looked further behind. So we ducked under through there, headed down to the second sump, went back to this, and found that. So for context, the tiny little duck under that we'd gone through was just up there, and it opened up into about 250 metres of new cave. Absolutely stunning cave, opened up into a huge tunnel, huge room in the middle here that we called the garden, and originally laid the line heading directly west out onto the western branch to a muddy, dirty little hole that we called the Tea Party on the far end there. Now, for folks who've dived Engelbrecht's East, you would be lucky generally to get about 5 or 6 metres of depth. It's quite shallow, it's pretty much a duck under. The far end of the Tea Party, we managed to get down to about 20 metres. So we knew we were onto something interesting. We knew there was stuff there. What we weren't expecting from all of this and all the research we'd done with those fracture lines was for it to actually go west. What we were expecting was for it to go south. So we managed to find a second line down on the southern line, squeeze through, and at the far end, we found this. Any non-cave divers here? Cool. I'm claustrophobic, just for reference, but this is the sort of stuff that we do. So that's a little section called Curiouser and Curiouser. We could tell that there was a lead, and we eventually managed to find a way through it, squeeze through. So the original Engelbrecht's East that people had been diving since the 70s started about there, and as you can see that main rock chamber in the middle there, big, large open area, we managed to do that. So it went from being a 50 metre long cave dive into a 450 metre long cave dive. And the section that you saw me squeezing through is this one down here, heading down into another 100 metres of tunnel further still. So for a couple of brand new cave divers, we were pretty proud of what we managed to do. We hadn't finished even our advanced cave diving at this stage. Quite proud of ourselves for basically going and checking something that people had dismissed for decades. The important thing out of all of this was also the survey. So again, documenting what we did. So I picked up a Monemo survey tool during COVID, and we started surveying all of the lines for that. That's how we got the measurements. That's how we knew the directions that we were going. So survey became a really vital part of this, and one of the other challenges that we took on after this was to then start going through and surveying all of the caves that we had access to. Now we had a lot of challenges with Monemo, obviously with this going up and down through rocks, all sorts of different areas, but we managed to actually do the survey and then overlay it with a satellite to be able to see specifically where it was going. So when this was published on ABC Online in 2022, when he officially announced it, we had people getting in touch with us to sort of say, that is running underneath my house. I think it was the lady that was down here, right near where the cave ends, reached out to say, you guys have just found that it's running underneath my house. So this green line that we've got running off to one side here points to the cave gardens. So Mount Gambier is renowned for having caves all through it. The cave gardens is right in the middle of town itself, and we managed to figure out that those fracture lines that we were identifying from Engelbrecht's are actually heading directly to the cave gardens in the centre of town. So to date, no one's been able to find a further way on from where we've gotten on that yellow line, but there's a strong suspicion that there is water, we know there's water movement between the two as well. So trying to find some sort of way on to be able to push is the hope. Might not be our team, but it might be someone else that goes and finds it. So we managed to present this at Oztech in 2022, which was very exciting for the team. And what we were really focusing on while we were presenting it was a completely different cave. So we'd started to focus on Ittle Bitty Cave instead. Now, Ittle Bitty couldn't be more different from Engelbrecht's. It is way out in the forest. It still has water movement through it. But the best map that we had at the time was this from Peter Horn, published in 1991. And Ittle Bitty's a beautiful cave. It's got clay blocks through it. It's about 200 metres long. But this was the best map that we had. While we were surveying these things, the other piece of technology that we were starting to introduce was photogrammetry. And Will Passos was the one who really pushed all of this. Will, our team photographer, started playing around with GoPros and testing a few different things out to see if we can actually start modelling some of these caves as well. So Will is an incredibly accomplished photographer, both above the surface and below. Started playing around with all of this sort of stuff and put together this rig. So this is the photogrammetry rig that Will uses, still continues to use, with 4 GoPros on the front, 3 big blue lights on the back to try and illuminate it, and then a float, obviously, because this thing's heavy as hell, to work it through. As he goes through and scans the cave, he has to rotate the entire rig. So these 4 GoPros are taking photos of the roof, of the floor as it goes. They'll take a photo every second, and we'll then go through and compare all of those images to start producing the models. So I think we've got a little bit of footage of Will. Yep, so this is how Will does the photogrammetry. I know you can't see very much, but there's the GoPros on the front. We have to move relatively slowly, not as fast as we normally would, but it gives the cameras a chance to take those images and then work them together. Now, that wasn't from Ittle Bitty Cave, that was from the connection in from Fossil Cave into Tank. The smaller the caves, often the harder this stuff becomes, and the slower you have to move, because if you move too quickly, the GoPros won't take enough images and they won't be able to connect the dots between each subsequent image. So moving through those kind of places quite slowly, but when we did scan Ittle Bitty, this is what Will managed to produce. So, as I said, it's about 200 metres long, and it's essentially a railway tunnel. Straight, relatively straight line, goes from one end to the other, I believe. And we can start to see sections where the rocks have actually dropped out of the ceiling and being able to put all of this together. So, from this scan, it stops. We also started to get a sense of scale for it as well. So it's all well and good producing these images, but there were a couple of different things underwater that allowed us to then be able to get a sense of how big this cave was. So I went down there and used a tape measure to measure this PVC square that was down there, and from that Will was then able to go and scan through and get a satellite image for where it was going. So rather than us using traditional Monemo, we used it as well, but rather than actually going down and measuring the line, we started using photogrammetry to actually start to get a real sense of the survey itself. And we could do this survey without coming into contact with the line, without needing to have tape measures, without needing to do a lot of different things.